I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Foongus. The original Pokemon Red and Blue games, perhaps in a nod to the Capsule Corp from Dragon Ball, saw all items in the overworld represented by Pokeball-like sprites. This allowed them to add a mimic monster in the form of Voltorb and Electrode. The 5th generation kept the Pokeball-esque sprites, but, famously, 100% replaced the roster of monsters with a brand new Pokédex, at least for the duration of the main story. This allowed for the introduction of an all-new Pokeball monster, one that specifically works from the game's overhead perspective. This version is reminiscent of a game which would have been very fresh in the memory of the developers of the original Red and Blue Pokemon games. The mushroom enemies in Super Mario RPG, which disguise themselves as Mario's health pickup of choice. Foongus is a grass and poison type Pokemon, though as with a couple of other grass types we've seen before, it's based on a mushroom. Mushrooms are fungi, and actually a completely different kingdom of life from plants. But in our ecosystem and our diets, they're closer to plants than the others. Pokemon Black tells us, "It lures people in with its Pokeball pattern, then releases poison spores. Why it resembles a Pokeball is unknown." And Pokemon White says, "For some reason, this Pokemon resembles a Pokeball. They release poison spores to repel those who try to catch them." Of course, we know in the real world that Foongus was created to resemble a Pokeball, but it doesn't necessarily mean things happened that way around in the Pokemon world. Pokemon Scarlet tells us, "There is a theory that the developer of the modern-day Pokeball really liked Foongus, but this has not been confirmed." The name Foongus comes from fungus, as this is one, perhaps combined with fool, as you are one for clicking on it. The Japanese name is Tamegatake, combining tama, or sphere, and a suffix used for many mushrooms, take, as in shiitake, while also being a pun on tamageru, or to be surprised. At level 39, which in keeping for Black and White's high level thresholds is 9 levels higher than Voltorb, Foongus can evolve into Amoonguss. Amoonguss is a bigger, broader mushroom, still with a Pokeball design on its head, now with 2 arms as well, ending in 2 smaller Pokeball patterned mitts. Pokemon Violet tells us, "Amoonguss mimics Pokeballs. It is not yet clear whether this mimicry is effective against other Pokemon." And Black and White tell us, "It lures prey close by dancing and waving its arm caps, which resemble Pokeballs, in a swaying motion. They show off their Pokeball caps to lure prey, but very few Pokemon are fooled by this." Regardless of whether Amoonguss is able to fool anyone, it's still dangerous. Pokemon Sword tells us, "This Pokemon puffs poisonous spores at its foes. If the spores aren't washed off quickly, they'll grow into mushrooms wherever they land." And Pokemon Scarlet tells us, "Be wary of the poisonous spores it releases. Mushrooms resembling Amoonguss's caps will grow out of anywhere the spores touch." Amoonguss is infamous as a user of the move Spore, which has a 100% success rate for putting opponents to sleep. Combined with bulky stats, the grass and poison typing which have few weaknesses, and the incredible ability Regenerator, which recovers 1/3 of the Pokemon's health every time it switches out, Amoonguss is actually a really useful Pokemon in the competitive scene. So much so that an Amoonguss has been on the winning team of at least one age bracket at the World Championships in 6 different years, a feat it shares with only one other Pokemon, a Pokemon which we'll get to this generation. Welcome back to Moils on Mon. Foongus.
It's Voltorb for a new age. I do like it. I think it's a cute take on the whole kind of fake Pokeball idea that they've done with Voltorb, right? Having as a silly mushroom lad. From a design standpoint, obviously it's going to be focused on the big mushroom, and I don't think Amoonguss really does much beyond adding a couple of mushroom, Pokeball mushroom shields. Are they growing off the main body like new mushrooms? Probably the
little hands, yeah.
Yeah. I do know this guy's a demon and competitive from what I've seen. I think he's a mainstay for so long.
I believe.
Because I think he's really good at sending people to sleep. The name is now silly, sadly, but it's not his fault.
The name takes Foongus' name and adds in a pun with the phrase Among Us, owing to the Pokemon's sneaky behaviour. It may also incorporate humongous, owing to the Pokemon's large size. The Japanese name is Morobareru, meaning completely exposed. Perhaps this is meant to mock Amoonguss for no longer looking like a Pokeball. Or perhaps it is to be shouted at the moment of reveal after a perfect disguise, like, ta-da, it was me all along. As a Dark Souls fan, I've always liked a good mimic enemy. Voltorb and Electrode, with their potential for exploding, were annoying examples, but I have a lot of time for the fungus among us, Foongus and Amoonguss. Original music for Luke Loves Pokemon is by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork is by Katie Groves. Funding is provided by listeners at patreon.com/podcastiopodcastius. For just $1 a month, supporters can listen to episodes a week early, and also help cover hosting and fees, making it possible for me to keep making episodes every week. I love hearing from listeners. Get in touch about upcoming Pokemon on Twitter or Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN. Drop a comment if you're watching the video, or a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Coming up are Frillish and Alomomola. I need to practice that before next week. So please get in touch about those or any other monsters. Even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Foongus, and remember, I love you too.